All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And what a successful morning and afternoon, right? Like the tables are full. It's a reflection of all the work that went in here. And so thank you for the sponsors and thank you for the community members that are around the room today. I hope that you've had an opportunity to engage with them. For me, it's heartwarming to see that most of them, if not all, are universities. And it tells you the importance of education in our community. And Cesar and I are going to talk about that this afternoon. But this is my colleague, Cesar. We're going to talk a little bit about ourselves. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, Mama. And there you go. Oh,
2 4.
All right. So we're going to share. I'm going to do a little bit more talking than normally because Cesar was sick this week. And he's still recovering. Yeah, so he and I met. He was a student at the university. And immediately, my colleagues and I saw his leadership. We saw in this young man the willingness to work, the lack of fear to do things, and just the ability to be to learn and be coachable. And if you're listening here today, if you're a young person, adults love to see people who want to learn and are not afraid to work. You see that in our community, and Cesar is one of those students. And I challenged him, and I mean it. I challenged him often, and he always answered that call. So we are Los Higher Ed Homies. What are Los Homies, right? Well, we're just a group of non-traditional higher ed professionals. We got together. We were always talking about how our higher ed professionals are stereotyped as looking one certain way. Cesar and I look different than most of the people you think are going to look, what they're going to look like on this college campus. And in fact, a college campus is very diverse. Yep. You start going there, you realize like, oh, these are members of my community. But early on, if you've never been to college, you think that there's not representation there, but in fact there is. But I would say that we always need more, right? We need more representation, more Black and Latino professionals on college campuses. And how does that happen? We educate more Black and Latino young people. That's how that works. So we formed officially in 2022. The concept was anyone can be a higher ed homie, any age, any gender, any profession. It's just someone who's willing to educate and be educated for diverse communities, right? Our motto is, I can't read it, and I haven't memorized it, so you have to excuse me, to facilitate connections between communities and education. That's our mission state, I'm sorry. And our motto is non ducor, which means we are not led, we lead. Steve, you want to add anything? I know you're still not feeling well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, good afternoon, everybody. Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. It's a privilege to be standing up here in front of you all, to be able to talk about the journey of our careers, what we've been able to do with the Los Higher Ed Homies. Again, excuse me if I sound a little bit raspy voice, but I was down for the whole week, but I could not miss the opportunity to be here in front of you all. So once again, thank you for such an amazing turnout, and hope you guys can get something out of our presentation today.
Absolutely. So a little bit about us, because it's important to know where you get your sources, right? If you ever quote anyone in our home, you're like, oh, I heard that so-and-so, right now there's a lot of politics going on. I heard that this is going to happen. Like, well, where did you hear that is my first question, right? And my kids used to say, oh, I heard it from a friend in school. Like, that's not valid. All right, that's just a rumor. That's not going to happen. So you have to know where you get your sources. So in this case, you have to know where you're getting your information, your sources, who we are. I'm originally from Corpus Christi. My colleague here is originally from Durango, Mexico. His nickname is Chiquito because he is a giant, right? And if he is Chiquito, that means I am Chiquitito. That's what he started calling me. And so he makes fun of me. And the other day we were doing a podcast, and he took a picture of my feet while we were doing the podcast, and I didn't understand why. And it turned out because my feet were dangling.
Similar like we're here today.
Like they never touched the floor. And that's just a reality. But that's kind of the partnership we've had. people look at us and like, what's going on over there? We were at a restaurant recently, and I told a lady, I said, él es mi hijo. And they say, imposible. He's my son. She said, that is impossible. Somebody lied to you. I said, oh, I'll talk to my wife. But so from Durango to Dallas, from Corpus Christi to Dallas, that's our journey. And we like to think of ourselves as beyond higher ed professionals. We are authors. We've co-authored some things. We were recently recognized with a book that we chaptered. It won an international award. We're writing 3 books right now. Cesar is going to tell his story, and it's a difficult one. We'd love to hear from you if you'll share your email on our podcast. We're going to reach out to you and tell you when his book is going to be ready. But I think you're going to enjoy reading that. And then, of course, we're also writing a children's book, which is a beautiful story as well. We do a podcast, as I indicated. We just celebrated our 30th episode.
30th episode.
On that, and we're pretty excited about that, among many other things that we get to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been able to present at different conferences, been able to participate in different panels, whether it be in higher education, whether it be talking about mental health, whether it be talking about just support services, specifically for our young men and our young minority men as well, and students. So it's a privilege to be able to share some of these experiences, some of the messages that we've been able to do. But yeah, so that's a little bit about our journey, where we've come, what we've done. And honestly, there's a lot of other stuff that we could sit here and talk about, but we won't bore you with all of that stuff. But
yeah, I think for us, it's just why we connect to you is we're first generation students. Cesar is new to this country, and maybe for you that you can relate. If you were a new immigrant or within the last generation or two to this country. For myself, I'm a 7th and 8th generation living in this country. So many years ago. And
many
years ago. And that's pretty common, actually, where I live in Corpus Christi. You'll see that most of the population there is 6th, 7th, 8th, 12th generation American. And here in the Dallas area, it tends to be a newer generation, right? So it's pretty common. So you said no one was here from Corpus Christi. Has anyone even traveled to Corpus Christi? Raise your hand. Anyone goes, oh, thank you so much. We appreciate it. The city of Corpus Christi appreciates that. We appreciate the tax dollars. We're a struggling city, and I suspect that the number one reason most people go to Corpus Christi is for the Bitty Bitty Bum Bum, right? For Selena to go to the museum and stuff. And
that's the only reason why I went.
That's the only reason, yeah. And so actually, here we are in March, right? You know that in 29 days, 30 days, is the 30th anniversary of the death of Selena. And I know that because I got married on that day. I was living in another country, and I called back home like, hey, I got married, and nobody answered the phone. And it turns out, because my family's all in Corpus Christi, they were there watching the news and they're at the scene of the crime. Very sad situation. Do you mind sharing the next slide?
Yes. So again, a little plug-in of what we're doing. In a couple of weeks, we're hosting our first initial Higher Ed Homies Summit. It'll take place at the Mountain View College. So we have a little flyer here. There's still some spots open. If any of y'all would love to join us, we would love to have you guys. Again, it's going to be a much smaller scale summit. It is our very first annual summit. We just decided to pull the trigger and be able to do it and be able to bring this resources to our community. It's been something that we had been talking about for a couple of years, and for some reason or another, we would put it on the rearview mirror for a little bit. But if any of y'all would love to join us, please register on that QR code. And if you guys have any questions about it later in the afternoon or whatnot, we'll still be here and we can answer some questions for you guys.
Yeah. So again, he hinted to it, but it's our inaugural effort, and so we're raising funds as we do it. We're paying things out of pocket, and that's okay. Year one, it's okay for it to look like that. In 10 years, it'll look as nice as this one is, right? So organized. if you hang out with us for a little bit, you realize that there's a whole lot of dreams, maybe not always the same organization.
Yeah.
But we do love to dream, and we have some great concepts. So if you're interested, we'll have that QR code at the end as well. But the conference mini summit is free. Next slide, baby. All right, so we're talking about breaking and building, right?
Yeah.
Quebrando y construyendo. It's important for me to share with you that Cesar's first language is Spanish. And so he can go back and forth in English and Spanish like nothing. It's super impressive. Can anyone else do that? English and Spanish, and like, gosh, that's beautiful. I love it. I struggle. I'm one of those.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. And so even though we do some podcasts in Spanish, he calls me a no sabo or something like that. And so apparently that's a joke that says like me and my Spanish, not so pretty.
I plead the fifth.
But I try. And I also appreciate people who are trying to learn English and have difficulty and don't always have that confidence and still try. It's a beautiful thing. I'll say this. I love to see someone come to this country, learn the language, enroll in a local university, earn a degree, and it just changes your life. Like education has that power. In the article that we wrote that was recognized, that received that award, one of the biggest points we wrote was that one of the last groups that still believes in the American dream is the Latino population, is the Latino community. We believe in education and home ownership as the way out of the difficult situation. It's true about our Black and brothers and sisters, Asian, white, everyone, right? But particularly in the Hispanic community, you see that we acknowledge that without education and hard work, it's going to be difficult. Now, do you need a college degree to be successful? I don't think so. I really don't think you need a college degree. Now, that's weird coming from someone who works at the university, right? But what I'm trying to say is, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a strong work ethic, you can do a lot of things. But with a college degree, you can go from working really hard and making good money to owning the company and making great money. That's what I offer to you. I also remind my family members, those who back home, they work in oil and gas, they make really good money. But that money ends around their 40s and 50s because they get older and they can't work. There's no retirement. And in higher ed, we have vacation days off and retirement and all that stuff. So it's worth a further exploration. Before I forget, we'd also like to invite you to visit our campus at 8750 North Central Expressway. You can reach out to us. We can set up a tour with your college counselors or with your families. We'd love to have you there. Next. All right. So I'm having difficulty reading this. So our circles of empowerment and our own educational journey. Cesar.
Yeah, so that's what we'll be talking today a little bit about, the people that have influenced who we are now, where we have been at. We'll talk a little bit about the obstacles and the struggles that we went through in order to be where we're at as well. So hopefully some of you students can relate to some of the things that we've talked about. I know I'm a little bit younger than him, so you guys might be able to relate a little bit more closer to me than his struggles. But if you guys can...
A little bit younger.
Well,
a lot younger.
25 years?
Yeah.
But if anything, again, it's just to provide you guys with a message that no matter what kind of obstacles, no matter what kind of barriers, no matter what kind of things you're going through, you can be successful in whatever it is that you want to be successful, whether it be education, whether it be entrepreneurship, whether it be mentoring, whatever you guys want to do. It's as long as you know what you want to do, where you want to be at. It really doesn't matter how many struggles or obstacles or barriers you guys have to go through, as long as you know your end goal.
Yeah, there's going to be struggles. Life is difficult. We know that. I hope that you're in a home that teaches you that, you might be safe in your home, but outside of that home, people are going to challenge you. People are going to say things. They're going to not always be nice. And maybe not all the adults in your life are going to empower you and make you feel worthy. But I'm here to tell you that 100% you're worth it. 100% you can do it. You have to have a plan. You have to work hard, right? there's so many community agencies here and universities. You're going to be able to connect with someone. I would love for you to, if I worked for said university, I'd be like, come to my university. You're going to love it. And you might love it. But there's so many other universities here. You're going to love it there. You might love it there as well. They might be able to offer you more resources. So explore. Talk to every table. I hope that you have the opportunity to go beyond just getting a signature and actually exploring what they can offer, what scholarships are available, what programs of study, right? And what does that look like on their campus? And so I wish you all the best in that exploration. But I also want you to know it's not going to be easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it.
Yep.
It's not easy. It's difficult, in fact, sometimes. You can go to the next slide, Mama. So, Cesar, we're going to talk a little bit about your educational journey on our podcast.
Well, before we get started with my educational journey and talking about that, I would love for somebody that's present here in the room to stand up for me real quick. Ma, por favor, si tú puedes parar. And I'm going to try to say this without crying and without making myself look bad up here, but this lady up here, she has been my rock. She has been the person that has put me through everything. She's been my support through everything. So it means a lot that she's here, front row, standing in front of us, and here with me through everything. And Ma, gracias, te amo. And I'm going to try to avoid looking at her now because I'm going to be crying the whole presentation.
We were talking, and I said, I think this is going to be a good one, Cesar. And he says, well, my mom and sister are going to be here. I said, oh, yeah, no, that's not going to be good, man. For you, I'll be fine, right? No, I say that. But the whole idea behind he and I coming together, I'll share it with you. A couple years ago, Cesar's father got sick. He had just gone back to Mexico. He got sick, and within a very short period, his father passed away. And you can imagine, if you don't know what it's like to have this life in two different countries and the difficulty of access and inaccess, right? So he didn't have access to go back to Mexico and say goodbye to his father. And I always think about the trauma that causes to families. If my family member is sick and needs my help, I can make the 7 or 8 hour drive down to Corpus Christi. But if your family's in Mexico and you don't have that same ability, you have to say goodbye via social media or on the phone. And I always think about the trauma that has, and we haven't even started to discuss how that affects our communities moving on. How do you move on when you couldn't kiss your family member goodbye? And these are the challenges. So when that happened to Cesar, he was one of my students. He took a day off and he came back to work. And I said, no, dude, you gotta take more time off. And he said, no, I have to get back to work. I got to get my mind off of this. And my dad, oh my goodness, my dad would have been so proud to know that I'm working. And it's true, right? There's this beautiful piece in our communities about work and what that means. I remember I went to a funeral when I was working in Guatemala. I worked for the federal government. And I was thinking this young man was 20-something years old and he passed away. And I was just looking at the family like, it's so sad. And they said, no. They called me Machiru. And if you're a Machiru means in the native language, bearded one. So I had this little beard, and they call me, I think they were going to call me something else, but let's go with, they called me Machiru for the beard. And they said, don't Machiru, don't be sad for him. He died working. His last day was working. And you know the pride that family felt? And I get it, right? That's who our communities are. And so for Cesar, he had to come back to work. A couple years later, my mom passed away. And that was, it's pretty tough for me as well. And I was an older guy. I'm 52 years old. And I was in my 40s. But I had never prepared myself ironically, for a day without my mom. So that's when Caesar and I started talking like, hey, man, let's get together and talk to other men about what it means to transition and work past those feelings. Like, the feeling right now, you have it in your throat and it keeps you from talking. And there's times where, as they say, you get choked up and you can't speak. Those are the early stages of grief. You can't even talk. You're in a denial of what's happening. And that's where we were.
Yeah.
And the irony is that Caesar, this young man, helped me get through a tough time in my life. And for that, I'm forever appreciative. And he was reciprocating. He was giving back what I had given him a couple of years prior. And it just made me think, for this young man to be that strong and that much of a leader, I only wish that you could all see that peace in yourselves. I hope that because everything we do in life ends the same way. We're all going to transition from this place. I hope that from today on, you make every attempt to recognize the people in your circle, in your unit that empowers you, whether that's a community member or family. And I hope that you humbly recognize that we're lucky in our families. We're from collective societies. We're not individualistic, right? That means that our ancestors got together in circles. That's why tables are formed that they are. They got together in circles without a table in the middle, and they shared stories. And you hear this from the ancestors. And this is still true today. When we get together, we often remove the table and let's get in a circle and let's talk about this. And that's kind of where we're at. And so I wanted to take this morning to one, thank Caesar's mom for being here and his sister, and recognize that we experienced a little bit of pain, but we have the microphone this morning, but we know that you've also likely experienced some difficulty in your life. Maybe you came here as a young person to this country. Maybe you're seeking the opportunity to enhance your life. Or maybe everyone thinks everything's going great and you're having your own difficulties. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about, right?
Absolutely.
So before we talk about the difficult pieces, let's share a little bit about our educational journey. So for you, Caesar, what challenges did you face as a first-generation college student?
So for me, I think the biggest one was the language. Coming here to the U.S. whenever I was 8 years old, obviously did not know a lick of English. I had to repeat second grade my first year here just because we didn't have a bilingual third grade in my district at that time. So I think for me, that was one of the first struggles that I had, some of the first difficulties going through education here in the U.S. And then once being in education, once trying to get everything squared away, trying to start to learn the language, came all that other social aspect of it. A lot of bullying that came into it for being from a different country, for having an accent, for being taller than the rest of my classmates. I mean, again, I was a year older than them. So I was a little bit bigger, I was a little bit taller. So a lot of that came through it, a lot of different things that happened socially. But I think one of through those struggles, the only thing that kept me going was my academics. Regardless of anything that was going on, regardless of what people were saying about me, what I was going through, I knew my reason, and I knew the reason why I was in this new country was to get a better education. So my focus was on that, to try to continue to get to education. And I didn't know how, when, or where, but I knew I was going to end up graduating from high school and ended up at a college somewhere throughout that journey.
Thank you. Thank you. What advice do you have for a student that self-identifies as undocumented? These are unique times in our country, and there's a lot of fear. Do you have any advice for a young person and families who are thinking that maybe college is not an option, or is it an option for me if I'm undocumented?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it is an option. I think that education is an option for all of us. Obviously, the dynamic and the social climate and everything right now is a little bit more difficult than it has been in previous administrations, and it seemed a little bit more fearful to try to jump into it. But at the end of the day, I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put that fear in us to not be educated. I think if we're educated and we know what we're talking about and we know what we want to do and we come with the arguments on what we're trying to do, and we're getting that education, they can't ever stop us. So I think that's the fear that they're trying to put in each of us, not to get educated, because they're afraid that once we are educated, they're not going to be able to tell us what to do or just do whatever they want with us, like they're doing now. So yeah, don't be afraid. Try to look for resources. There's different opportunities out there. There's different scholarships. There's different things that you might be able to get, depending if you're undocumented or documented, whatever your case may be, whatever your status might be here in the U.S. But yeah, I think honestly, if that's your dream, I think that's also a big thing. If that's what you want to do, and that's what you want to pursue as an education, go for it.
My last question is, what advice do you have for graduating seniors entering that next stage of their academic career, college or entrepreneurship?
Oh man, ask questions. I think that's the only way you're going to learn. For me, I try to go through the whole process by myself without trying to ask for any help or advice for that matter. It was very difficult. Somehow I ended up at the college and meeting some people that were able to help me, but it wasn't because I was asking for that help. They just saw that I was lost, and they provided those resources for me. So go out there, seek that help. If you don't know anything or you don't know something, please ask for advice. Please ask for help. I know all of the different resources here in this room will be able to help you. You guys can reach out to us if you guys have any questions regarding education as well. Now, we have a couple of questions for Dr. Fred as well. He has a little bit different perspective being a non-traditional student as well. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like being a non-traditional student?
Yeah, so a non-traditional student here in the United States, what that means is that a traditional student is going to go from high school straight into college. And once you interrupt that, like a lot of people say, I'm going to take a gap year. And so they're going to go, whatever they're going to go do for that year. Well, then you become a non-traditional student. And usually that's an interruption of the services that universities are offering to you. So if you go from high school to college, they're going to offer you the most amount of money, scholarships, and aid. If you interrupt that, then you become a non-traditional student. And there's still money and aid available, but it's just not the same level of attention towards a freshman, a traditional freshman in a college campus. And so for me, I went to the military first, and then once I got out of the military, I went to community college and then the university.
Well, that's a great segue for the next question. Can you tell us how that military experience helped you in your educational journey?
Yeah. Any military veterans in here, by the way? Any other military veterans? A couple. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Yeah. Thank you. The military is a tiny population. We're unique in that you can't quit. You can quit your job. You can quit college. You can quit a lot of things. You can quit a relationship. You can try to quit being in your family. That doesn't work either. Really. So military is a lot like your family, so you're not allowed to quit. And so as a result, they kind of break you down to nothing, and then they build you back up to be, for me, I was in the Army, so they built me back up to be a soldier. And what that means is that you're never allowed to quit. You're always seeking the opportunity to understand that on the other side of that discomfort, on the other side of the tough parts, is opportunity. Those where the opportunities are. The opportunities are never going to be on this side where it's easy. Okay? If you earn your degree, the difficulty is in that middle part. And then afterwards, you get to appreciate it. I don't buy into, if you have a degree, you're smart. The smartest person, the wisest person I know is my father. And he has a third grade education. And I think when I need advice, I go to him. And he gives me some pretty sound, pretty simple advice. And it humbles me because sometimes we get lost in like, oh my goodness, you don't know how tough my day is. Brother, tell me all about how your day is at the university. I guess you're right. I won't be sharing that with you, So you deal with different kind of personalities, but it's not the same struggle. He reminds me, remember when you were in the military, what that was like? The threats, the operations you had to do in the military in Latin America. And so that, I bring that to higher ed. I don't quit. I keep going, make my goals, and then I try to be successful.
Yeah, before we move to our next part of it, since we are running a little short, we were going to play this video for you guys. But if you guys follow this QR code, that will link you guys to our podcast. And if you watch our 30th episode that we have on here, this was that clip that was going to be about, and you watch it, and then we'll give you the next prompt here in a little bit once you guys take a picture of it. We'll be raffling a T-shirt from our next summit as well. So all you have to do is go watch the video, talk a little bit about what you want to do, what things you want to leave behind, which that'll be the prompt before you continue your next educational journey, and write it on the comments on that YouTube video, and we'll pick a random person. Ariana, if you want to go,
or two,
to get one of our cool shirts that you can see up here. But those will be our shirts for our Inspire Summit that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to get into. All right, what does it say? Yeah, have you ever faced a challenge seems insurmountable, seems impossible to overcome? And that's the next part of this. We wanted to kind of share some difficulty, and I just wanted to share with you, if you'll go to the next one, real quick. So I'm going to click on these. So that's okay. I'll do it. So this is a picture of me in 1978-ish. And so I'm the guy all the way to the left with no teeth. That would be me and my little clown.
The little one?
Yeah, the little one, right? And my two sisters and my mom and dad. So in that picture, when we took it, here's the price of things. A box of cereal was about $1, and we know where it's at now, right? 10 pounds of potatoes. A Disney World ticket for an adult was $6.50 now. If you've not been to Disney World anytime soon, it's over $200 to go to Disney. College tuition, we know it's difficult. It's a sensitive subject. I would imagine that my boss would have said, "Don't talk about that just yet. Work your way into that." But we know that it's a topic that's gone up hundreds of percentage points in the last few decades. A new car went from $5,200 roughly to average price about $50,000 today. So if you're going to get a brand new car without it being, extreme top of the line, an average car is about $50,000. And you think about how much money we're making, it doesn't leave a whole lot for you to start your first home. When my mom and dad were thinking about buying a home in the late 1970s, the average home in the United States was $54,000. But where I live in Corpus Christi, the average home was in the 20s and 30s. You could buy a home. The first home we bought, actually, we bought out in what they call colonias. So we didn't know that. The news came out there and they did a news report, and they were like, this is the colonias. And we're like, what is a colonia? And they said, y'all know the colonias? I didn't know. I certainly didn't know I lived there. And they were saying, like, no running water, the electricity is not very well, and the houses are built kind of not, and people sold these homes to these families, and we were just buying the American dream. We paid $17,000 for that, but it changed our life. It changed our whole perspective and how we live. For today, if you're a young person and you want to buy a home, it's about $420,000 for you to buy. Basically, took you out of the market for that first home. And a dozen eggs used to cost 70 cents. Now it's about $8,000 or something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. I don't know. We were thinking about bringing that as a silent auction item or to give away just a dozen eggs because it's so expensive. And so we should, right? Maybe the 18-pack of eggs, right, to really entice you. So here's my quick story. If I could share with the 9-10-year-old me, it would say to let her express what love is. So this is a picture of my mom. You can tell, right? We look so much alike, right? And my mom was European. She was Greek, and my dad was Mexican. And so you see my sisters and I, we have some color to us, I have more color. My sisters have green eyes. Like my dad is very unique, you know. And but everyone always said, like, you look just like your mom. Pareces a Yolanda, right? La güera. They say, la güera. Pareces la güera. And, you know, early on, you know, in Corpus Christi, we really don't speak Spanish. I learned Spanish later on in life. And the reason I'm standing up is because I want to feel like I'm a little bit taller than Caesar. And am I still not? Next time. It reminds me of a quick story I wanted to share with you guys. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I went to school, and I noticed that the teachers were treating some other students differently. At that time in Corpus Christi, they were doing, and I know it happened here in other cities, they were busing in kids from other districts and busing our kids out to other districts to integrate, okay? So at that time, they were busing in kids from a wealthier side of Corpus Christi into our community. And I saw that the teachers were treating these students better. And I didn't know why, I didn't know why they were treating them better. I just knew they were treating them better. And so I would come home from school and my mom would be like, how did school go? And I'm like, not too good. She said, why not? I said, because I want to get the attention of my teachers. Every young kid wants the love. Thank you. She appreciates my discussion. I appreciate that. Every child wants the love and attention of their teacher. My wife is a bilingual, K through 4, K through 12, but she's a 4-year-old school teacher. So all her students, all of them, are from Mexico. They only speak Spanish, and they just love Miss Fuentes. And I think about that. I think I was seeking that same love and appreciation for my teachers when I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And I told my mom that. She says, well, what can I do, mijo? What can I do to make it better? Well, I was observant, and I noticed that the kids that were being treated better is because, in my head, they brought their own lunch. And we were getting a tray, right? I was bringing my own lunch, but my lunch was a brown bag with foil and a bean taco. Because we live in the LULAC housing projects on the west side of Corpus Christi. So the only thing my mom had on some days was beans. Well, I remember when I came to Dallas and they said, we do our tacos like this. And, dang, y'all put lettuce and tomatoes on y'all tacos? We didn't have money for lettuce and tomatoes. We just had beans and some hamburger meat. For real. So I came home and I was upset. I was throwing a little tantrum. And I told my mom, I said, it's because those kids have a brown bag. And that's why the teachers are treating them better. So she said, well, what's in the brown bag, mijo? I said, a banana, an apple, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So you know what she did? Because we didn't have a grocery store there. She walked down to the corner store, like a gas station. And she paid, right, 3 or 4 times the value of some bread. I don't know if we ever had bread in our home until that point. We sure didn't have peanut butter and jelly. She came back with peanut butter and jelly, a beat up banana, and a bruised up apple, because that's all they had at that store. And the next day I went to school with my bag, and I was so proud. Have you ever had those moments you're just so proud, like, yo? And I sat right there next to all those kids they rode in the bus. I was like, checkmate, mom. And I ate my sandwich. And it didn't fill me up the way I thought it was. It didn't give me the joy. So I came back. I walked back to the projects. And my mom said, okay, mijo. She was waiting for it. So how was it? She was so proud to make me happy. And I said, nah, it didn't work. She said, what do you mean? You said the peanut butter jelly, da, 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 da. I said, nah, it wasn't all that, Mom. And she goes, well, what else, mijo? What can I go buy you? And I said, nah, it's not that. It's just that I don't know why the teachers are paying attention to them, but it's not in that bag. It's not in that bag. And she said, but why don't you just take the bean tacos? And I told her I was embarrassed because the kids in that time would make fun of us. The funny thing is, I told Caesar, we did a podcast today about, we were eating tamales on the podcast. Hey, I mean, why not, right? So we're eating tamales on the podcast, we were talking, and And I said, did you know when I was growing up, they used to make fun of us for eating tamales? And now those same people like, yo, hey, where can I get some tamales? Like, oh, now you want to know. You want me to be your plug, okay? The tamale plug. So my mom broke it down for me like this. She said, in so many words, it takes nothing to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's nothing to buy a banana and an apple. But let me tell you what I did for those beans. I cooked them overnight. I smashed them in the morning. I made the masa last night. And this morning I rolled out the tortilla. I heated up the comal. And I made you that tortilla and I wrapped it up and I kissed it. And I needed that moment to realize the simplicity. For me, it's like, it's a taco. It's just a bean taco, Caesar. What is that? That means nothing. But I'm telling you, it's love, man. The amount of love that went into that product, and it humbles me. And I just want to share that with you because we're lucky to be in communities where that is still available. When we go to a restaurant together, we say like this, hey, how's the salsa and how are the beans? And if you can't start off with good salsa and good beans, we're not going to eat there, I'm telling you right now. Or we're not going to come back, you know? And so I just shared that with you so you know. I wanted to say my mom's name so you know her name. Her name was Yolanda Lemos Fuentes. And you know, what we would do for another opportunity to get those simple bean tacos, right? That's what it's about. And so before she died, she would text me and she would say, show me all the peanut butter and jelly restaurants in the city. There are none. She says, now show me all the Mexican restaurants in the city. Point made, Mom. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You go next. Alrighty, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about my own story. Excuse me. And honestly, it's been a journey. I've been here 20 years. First time I went back to Mexico was about 6 months ago. Thank you to Advanced Parole. But if you were to tell that young man right there in those pictures what he was going to go through, what kind of things he was going to struggle with to become the man that he is now, he wouldn't have believed it. And you can see, I mean, I love playing soccer, so pretty much all those pictures up there with me in my soccer jerseys, playing soccer. That was my joy in Mexico. That's who I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to end up at. But here, this was my first birthday here in the U.S. I was turning 9 years old, and if there was ever a message that I could give that young man sitting at that table, is that the future is brighter than you think, and that I promised him that we're going to love the person that we become. Again, it has been a long journey. I'm not going to bore you guys with the whole story with what everything I went through. I talked a little bit about earlier. But to be better, or to be the better version of yourself, you have to go to struggles. You have to go through difficulties, through adversities, to become the very, very best person that you can and that you want to be. And I think that's the message that we're trying to convey for you guys. No matter what you guys are struggling with in school, no matter what things you guys are struggling with at home, there is always somebody there to help you. There will always be there somebody to help, give you a hand and to continue to move you forward. As long as you know where you want to be at and where you want to end up at, that's the message that we want to give our 9-year-old selves. No matter what the future brings to us, no matter where it puts us, no matter what journey we take, it's going to be a bright future. It's going to be an amazing future, and you guys can do anything and everything that you guys set your minds to. I know we're running a little bit short of time, so thank you guys again for joining us. Please, we encourage you to tell your stories to your families, to your friends, to your loved ones. There's healing from telling your stories. There's a reassurance that you're doing the right thing, and that you're on the right path from just talking to your loved ones. It's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy, because it took me till I was about 21, 22 years old whenever I started seeing a mental health therapist for me to open up to my family and actually let them know everything that I went through. in the first 18, 19 years that I was here in this country. So please talk to your parents, talk to your loved ones, and find somebody that's going to support you through your journey. And if it's not at home, find it somewhere else. There's people out there that are always going to be willing to help, but please continue to tell your stories. Never forget about your family. Never forget about the people that have led you to where you're at. No matter how insignificant something might seem, it always makes a change to your life and where you're going to end up at. Once again, thank you guys for joining us.